Mr. Haruna, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. As the moderator stated, my name again is Mika'il Haruna Daya, and I'm the founder of Drylands Initiative for Ecosystem Restoration and Capacity Building. I'm going to be presenting on climate, livelihoods, and survival, protecting vulnerable communities in 2026 and beyond. So, now why are we having this conversation? Climate change is no longer a distant threat. It's something that happens around us every day. When we go out of work, we see things that were not there before. The vegetation is dying, our wells are drying, the rivers are drying, and things are just not as it used to be. It has become easier to now tell people what climate change is. You don't have to convince them. So now the real question is not about is climate change real? It's now about who is vulnerable, who should be protected, and who is now left behind. So the reality on ground is now we have more intense flood. For people in Africa and in Nigeria, we have seen that in every rainy season, we have more prevalent flood that is more devastating. Droughts setting in, there is decline in crop yield. Livestock are dying due to heat waves and drought. There is increase in pests and diseases. Farmers, more often than not, find it very hard to cope with armyworms, rinderpest for cattle, and things like that. So climate change came, and so for someone who would ask, but there was this thing before the climate change you're talking about. Yes, these things were happening, but then climate change now uh, add more problems to what we are having. If you used to have flooding activity in, let's say, along the river Niger, it was something that we could survive with. But with climate change and the increase in precipitation, it makes it difficult for people and the local community to cope with this increase in uh, extreme events vis-a-vis floods, drought, heat waves, pests, and diseases. And this impact has been affecting more often is the smallholder farmers that don't have the capacity and the wherewithal to withstand this shock. Not only because they don't have the financial wherewithal, but sometimes because of the geography, sometimes because of their way of life. The next slide will be talking more in depth on that. So, and because of this, there is rural to urban migration, which has also bring about the issue of insecurity, issue of conflict on land. The farmer had that crisis. We have it across the African continent, which hitherto it was not as prevalent as it is now. So vulnerability, like I said earlier, is not just about financial wherewithal. It is exposure plus lack of protection. So you have a smallholder farmer in a local community, and that he does not understand what really climate change is, but he knows that these things have been affecting him for in recent years. So how does this person survive the impact of climate change? It makes him vulnerable because he's a farmer. It makes him vulnerable because of his geography. Even if he has the finance, he does not know how to cope. And this affects more often is the women and youth, because women are usually the custodians of the household. They cannot migrate and leave their family behind. For men, that is where the issue of insecurity comes in, the issue of urban to rural migration. We have rising cases of banditry, for instance, in Nigeria, Boko Haram crisis, which is directly connected to the loss of livelihood in our rural communities. We would all agree that in the last 20 years, there have been a lot of increase in insecurity. And like I have said in many forums, the insecurity we are having cannot be solved with bullets and boots. But until and unless we decide to address the root causes of these problems. And that is what climate change has brought for us. We have to go to the communities to ask them how climate change is affecting them. This is even especially important because climate change is location specific. What is affecting the person in, let's say, Zamfara State, it's not the same thing affecting the person in Sokoto State. The same thing, what is affecting the gully erosion in Enugu State might not be the same thing that is affecting another person in the same Enugu State in a neighboring community. And that's why we have to go to the rural communities, hear their problems, for us to work together with them and provide solutions to these problems. And this is where the access to finance then come in. The financial wherewithal provide them with that capacity to cope with the impact of climate change. And then why is 2026 to 2030 very important? It is known as the make or break window. Climate impacts are accelerating faster. This year, in December, there is no Hamatan, which is going to affect farmers that are cultivating, into dry land farming, dry season farming, I beg your pardon. We have onion farmers that will complain. We have wheat farmers along the Sahelian belt of northern Nigeria that usually start their dry season farming in December. So how would they cope? We have to now make sure that we provide them with early warning system, provide them with improved seedlings. And then population growth and urbanization is also increasing. There is a lot of pressure on land. Land conflict is now prevalent. We often say there is enough land, but where is the arable land? We have looked at grazing areas. Our grazing areas, we will see pasture, but it is not palatable for the cattle. So how do we solve these problems? This is the issue of research and development. We have to research on what and how best to cope with the impacts of climate change. We're looking at the pressure on land, water, and the food. Food security is now a problem for the African continent because pests and diseases is increasing, the droughts and the flood activities that we've been talking about. And if you talk with local communities, there are things that you even do not anticipate that are happening as a result of climate change, but it comes in many forms and shapes. So, and that is where we need to do more research and development, and this is why we need also more local engagement and community action plans. So if we do not invest in resilience now, adaptation will become permanent crisis and humanitarian response. Just of recent, we are talking about the Lake Chad basin and how it is shrinking. Okay. Today, we have accepted it as a reality. Wow. So if certain things happen over time, it gets to a tipping point where it becomes irreversible. And that is why it is important to address things at the early stage. So from coping to resilience, coping is the short-term reactive and often damaging strategies. But then resilience, it has to do with planned and a preventive system-based approach, where you do research and development, where you work with the local communities to develop community action plan, ask them the root causes of those problems, how it started, and what are the solutions to these problems. This strategy gives the local communities a sense of ownership, and it's also a way of documenting indigenous knowledge of coping with our climate change. So resilience, as it is, if you look at it more often, we say we want to do a project on this, but this is not how it is. It is something that we must do. It has to be done. It's not a project, it has to be done because you cannot go on with your activities, daily activities, without building resilience. This has to do with local roads from farmland to your market, agro-processing machines. Hitherto, there wasn't a problem of agro-processing machines because the population was not increasing. But with population growth, you have to ensure that there is that mechanism to cope with the rising population. When it comes to extreme events like the flood, drought, heat waves, we have to employ certain things that will help us cope with those things. Our buildings have to be climate resilient. Our agricultural inputs have to be climate resilient. We have to adopt climate smart agriculture. And even in our dressing, for instance, we may be dressing with turbans and gowns, but then because of the increase in heat waves, we have to then change that. So it's not something that it's not a project, but it's something that we just have to adapt it as a way of life. So these are the four pillars. I looked at it and I developed it myself of protecting livelihoods. Number one has to do with resilient production systems. This is where we talk about climate smart agriculture. We talk about water harvesting systems. In northern Nigeria, we have been working with local communities to see how we can convert open pits into water harvesting systems. Diversification. This has to do with agroforestry, mixed cropping, and other forms of livelihood. If you are a farmer, you also have to adopt other cropping mechanisms. You can go into trading just to reduce the risk of climate impact on you. Because if you're just a farmer and now flood comes and wash away your farmland, you don't have a fallback plan. And this is where diversification comes in. The same thing with agricultural practices. You have to adopt mixed cropping. If there is armyworms that mostly affect maize, and you have millet or cowpea, that also reduces the impact of that pest infestation on your farmland. Then financial protection, insurance, the index-based insurance that affects farmers from pre-upstream to downstream. It also affects other land users, livestock, fishermen, from the impact of climate change. Climate finance, blended finance, and public risk sharing. All these are financial protection that protects the population entirely from the shocks of climate change. And then strong local institutions providing early warning system, both modern early warning system and traditional warning system. And this doesn't have to be the early warning system we see on 9 o'clock news. No, we can adapt early warning system that fits our circumstances. If you have a local community that have no access to electricity or that have no access to telecommunication network, then we have to do a fit for purpose early warning system for that community. We can do an extension service, provide a way that they can have this information before the advent of an extreme event. And then community planning, which I spoke about earlier on community action planning, where you sit down with all land users, hear their problems, what are the root causes of these problems, and how do you best address their problems. And extension services. The World Bank standard for extension workers is 800 farmers to 1 extension workers. As it is now, we fall far below that standard. So, but then with ICT and indeed with artificial intelligence, things have been made even easier. That we can provide extension services to the remotest villages without necessarily having that challenges we used to have. In hitherto, an extension worker will have to go to farmland, provide extension services, look at what is the problem, and then give you the right extension advice. But now, with artificial intelligence and with information and communication technology, we can reach to the farmers, vulnerable of them, and in the remotest of communities, without the challenges that were there before. And now I can say we have been seeing a lot of organizations coming up with novel ideas on extension. I think recently we've met with an extension company, Extension Africa. We have the Sasakawa Africa. All these are doing a very excellent job, and we hope in the coming years, before the 2030, we would provide the farmer and other land users the needed extension services that will help them withstand the shock of climate change. And then data and governance. And This will provide stronger local institutions. Suffice it to say that we cannot achieve climate change resilience without strong local institutions. And this is why a lot of projects are failing. We go into communities, provide them with the needed help for that time, and we walk out. But then where is the sustainability? Sustainability is key. Climate change doesn't happen overnight, and it will not just go overnight. And these communities will have to cope with this climate change over time. And this is why it is even more important to ensure that we build stronger local communities such that they can handle their own problems themselves. Then plan adaptation and not panic adaptation. Most times we go and respond to emergencies. We don't plan, we don't prevent emergencies, but when they happen, we rush there, we do proposals, we do climate finance proposals, where national institutions will go in there and provide interventions. But that is not what is needed. What is needed is to prevent it from happening. And how do you do that? We have to make sure that we do a risk-informed development. Our budget should be climate-informed budgeting system. Our policies should be climate embedded in that when we are doing policy formulations, we have to consider climate change. We have to look at the dynamics of those communities, ensure that climate change is location specific. And you cannot sit down in New York or in Abuja or in Bonn to decide for the local communities in northern Nigeria or in southern Nigeria. You cannot even sit down in the state capital. You have to go to those communities to plan how they would adapt to the changing climate. And this is what we have been doing, like a lot of local communities, and indeed the national organizations, government and organizations, trying to see that local communities are part and parcel of policy formulations. And that is why you hear a lot of validation workshops, you hear a lot of community engagement, a lot of funds have been released to see that local communities and local have a voice in our policy formulations. So the three big shifts, that is now, like I said, from response to prevention, from projects to systems, and from aid to investment in resilience. I have spoken about this in the 2 or 3 slides. So if you look at it, we have to prevent instead of responding to emergencies. We have to build systems instead of just having projects that will end in 18 months or 36 months. And then we have to invest in resilience than just providing aid, which is mostly short term. Who must do what? And now this is the critical question. Government. Policy is a prerogative of government. Coordination, scaling, public investment, and risk sharing. And now do we ask ourselves, is government doing what it's supposed to do? If I am to answer this question, I would say that yes, government is doing what it's supposed to do when it comes to policy formulation. But what about coordination? What about scaling? What about public investment? What about risk sharing? And I think I will now leave it to you to please say if government is doing what it's supposed to do. And now to NGOs and civil society organizations, the big noisemakers. Uncle, I know best policy, the people that feel they know everything. How are we? I'm also part of this. How are we? Are we doing what we are supposed to do? Have we built community trust? Are we ensuring that we go to remotest of communities to deliver? What of innovation and what of accountability? Are we doing the right thing? Now I'm also leaving this to you. If the NGOs and civil society organizations are doing what they are expected to do. Now, private sector and finance, investment, insurance, technology, and scalable solutions. Globally, private sector have not been doing what they are supposed to do, especially when it comes to finance. In climate finance, private finance, I think, represents less than 3% of climate finance. Correct me if I'm wrong. And this is not how it's supposed to be. Are they investing in climate resilience? Are they investing in insurance? What of technology? And what are scalable solutions? We see a lot of it, but are we seeing it on ground? And this is another question I will leave you to answer. Communities. Now, communities, we have to look at local knowledge. And we go to communities, when we have community action plans, we document local knowledge. They are very knowledgeable. You hear people telling you, we need to go and provide training for communities. We need to tell them what to do because they don't know what they are doing. They don't know how to cope with climate change. This is laughable. When you talk with local communities, you learn from them because they know these things. There is no way you have been living with malaria for 2 years and you don't have the solutions to that problem. Perhaps it's not working, but it is a solution that you have developed for these problems. And that's why the standard best practices is when you go to communities, you ask them, what are these problems? What are the causes of the problems? And how are you coping with this problem? Then what are the solutions to these problems? I have done this community action plan for more than, I think, for over 500 communities. And I leave most communities more knowledgeable than I met them because they tell me things that I don't know how to solve. You go to a community and they tell you their problems are pests, and which pests? They are rodents. From my days in school and growing up, I have never had rodents becoming the major problems of a community. But I listen to those communities. I ask them, okay, how do you think it is best to address the challenges of rodent infestation in your Fadama areas? And they give me solutions, practical solutions, integrated pest management that should be employed in that area to solve the problems of pest infestation, rodents to be precise. I have sat down with farmer and herders, and I've realized that the issue of farmer herder crisis we are having is because we have not sat with those communities and the herders that have been living for decades. They've been living together, they've not been having problems. All of a sudden, they are now having problems, and nobody felt it is important to come and sit with these people to hear what the problem is and what the solution should be. In Kebbi State, I was in a community and I asked them, what do you think is the problem? What is the solutions to this farmer herder crisis? A farmer donated 5 hectares of land, and he said the organization can provide a grazing area for these people. And that was what happened. And I want to believe that was the end of the problem that they have been having. They have intermarriages, they were friends, they played together, but all of a sudden they are now enemies. There must be solutions to this problem. And this is why local knowledge should be important. Their ownership. We have to see how we can ensure community ownership. You don't just come and provide them with the solutions. I was in Benue State, is a story I always like to share. We went to a community to do a community need assessment. When we went to the community, we went in there, we saw women going to a fast stream about 2 kilometers away from that community. We just believe that that is the solution to the problems of this. That's the major problem these communities are having. It's water. We went to the local chief and we asked him to give us a location, a central location, for us to provide water boreholes and treatment plants. They gave us a central location. We did a very fantastic project, very good borehole and a treatment plant. We thought when we come back in the next 3 months, we're going to be celebrated. Unfortunately, we came into that community and we saw women going to that same fast street to fetch water. We knew there was a problem and we still went to the chief. We asked him, why are the women not using the borehole we provided? He said, they said they are not going to use it. So we invited them. We asked them, what is the problem? Why are you not using it? To our surprise, they said, when you came, you discussed with the men. So now what we want from you is the men should now use the borehole. It's their borehole, since you did not discuss with us. So that is where the issue of community ownership is. This is why it is very important to involve every member of the community, even if it's not each and every member, but let them have a representation. Make sure the youth are there. Make sure women are there. Make sure the elderly are there. Make sure the vulnerable, the physically challenged, they are there. Other land users, fishermen, uh, 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 herders, and other land users should be part and parcel of that community engagement, because that is what gives them community ownership. After you leave a project, they are the ones that will protect that asset. Then sustained action. This is where I spoke about strong local communities. Questions you may be asking: where will the money come from? So this is another question. We talk about climate finance. We talk about Green Climate Fund. A lot of you will hear about Green Climate Fund. A lot of fund is there. A lot of fund is in climate finance. To be honest with you, this is the most difficult job of the year for a person working with an institution or with non-governmental organization or with a community development organization to now bring in money that he will use for climate finance. But then the problems we are having is we refuse to understand that we have to create value. We have to ensure there are strong local institutions. We have to show that this is how we are adapting before the money will come. We have to make sure there is a system. So that is why we don't have the money. Is Africa too late to adopt? No. It is not too late to adapt. It might be too late to mitigate certain climate impact, but then to adapt, it's not too late. It might be expensive. If you were supposed to just do some agroforestry practice to restore your soil, now you have to bring mix of strategies. You have to adapt, you have to do soil mulching, agroforestry, intercropping, so many things to see how you can restore your soil. But then it's never late until it's over. What can NGOs really do? Non-governmental organizations are the friends of local communities. They have to deliver, they have to innovate, and they have to build trust. When local non-governmental organizations and civil society organizations, community-based organizations lose the trust of local communities, then it's now a lost cause for us, because then you may not be able to deliver the needed impact or climate adaptation strategies that we want to do to salvage the situation, so to speak. Innovation is there with the coming of artificial intelligence. There are a lot of innovative practices to see how we can achieve bigger results within a very short time. What about government capacity? Government capacity, it must be strengthened, and it has to be scaled. This is very basic. I don't want to dwell so much on this because there is a lot of noise about government, but the truth of the matter is this is a task for everybody. Government can provide the needed support, it can provide the coordination, it can provide the policy, but government cannot do everything, especially in a democracy that changes every 4 years. We have to ensure that, okay, who now charges the government to ensure that they have sustained development practices? These interventions, are they sustainable? Okay, in the budget of 2023, you have promised to do so. Today it is 2027. What have you done? This is what it is. So, be it as it may, we have to be the ones that will charge the government to do the right thing. So the capacity of government strengthened, yes. The choice before us: for every flood, for every drought and food crisis, is already voting for the future. As I speak today, there are communities that are relocating in Southern Africa. Communities are relocating, they are now leaving their ancestral land. The ancestral land that you will die with your last blood to protect. Flood or drought would now force you to leave that place unceremoniously. So it's now for us to see how we can protect our future. We look at our children, our children's children. How do we provide a better atmosphere for them to thrive? Like the definition of sustainability, which is very important, accommodating our needs and wants without infringing on the rights of other species and indeed that of the future generation. 2, will we continue to react, or are we going to finally start to prepare? And the 3 is protecting the vulnerable is not charity. It is smart economics, smart security, and smart development. Thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. And I would anticipate questions from you. Over to you, Usman.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Mika'il, for this very, very wonderful presentation. I think it has touches almost everyday life of an ordinary Nigerian and those people living in Sahel. We have Mr. Mika'il has gone deeper to discuss on issues related to vulnerability, climate impacts, and so on and so forth. And then now we can go to Q&A. If you have a question, you can either drop it in the message, or you can raise your hand and I can give you the opportunity to speak. Anyone with a question? You can unmute your mic, introduce yourself, and ask your question, especially on issues related to vulnerability among rural communities, and as well as how climate change should be avoided or mitigated. As adapt to climate change or mitigate its impacts, especially because some people mix the two, either mitigation or adaptation. So if you have any question, comment, you can unmute your mic, speak. Thank you. Okay, someone is ready. Yusuf?
Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much for the privilege. And I thank the presenter for a wonderful presentation. My own, I don't know whether I will say it's a question, or I think I will need a bit of more clarification or knowledge. He made a statement that last December, there wasn't much harmattan, and this will affect farming activities or something like that. I kindly wish that he expatiate, because it dawned on me that so harmattan do affect farming or something like that. Thank you so much.
Okay, over to you, Mr. Mika'il.
Thank you, Mr. Yusuf. Thank you for the interesting questions, and I think it's even important that I expatiate more on that, being that it's a new thing to us. And yes, harmattan, and not only harmattan, like the cold weather of the night help some crops to germinate or to it thrives better. For onions, in the night, the cold weather, they may not pulp properly. And you may wonder, why is it that we don't cultivate wheat, like, wheat, right? During rainy season, and why is it always in the dry season? That is because of the cold weather of the harmattan. You understand this? So without that, it will affect the yield of wheat. Tomatoes also. If you do your tomatoes in Maiduguri or Kebbi and you want to transport it to Lagos, the harmattan, the heat and the increase in temperature, hitherto you just put them in a basket and transport them to Lagos. But because of the increase in temperature, it will not, they will not survive that heat. So this is how it is going to affect smallholder farmers. Low temperature is a very important factor in some crop yield. And then another factor is the irrigation water demand. You see, each and every crop has its own irrigation water demand. The benchmark, for instance, for rice is 1 liter, per hectare per second. So if you're going to be using that benchmark and you used to have a temperature of about perhaps 18 degrees centigrade, and then now you have a temperature of normal temperature of 36 to 40 degrees centigrade, or let's even say 30, the irrigation water demand is not going to be the same. And that becomes a very important determinant for your crop yield. Thank you very much.
So, Mubarak, you can unmute.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. It has been excellent so far. And my question lies around the aspect of climate financing. It's a big deal within the sub-Saharan Africa. And of course, this climate-related negative impact that we are seeing with respect to climate change are prone today, and we can see it everywhere. We are witnessing it. It's typical now. We can just say that the harmattan is almost not there. We can we have experienced from November to date not much of the cold weather that we are used to, but much breeze and higher temperatures, only changing within the late night hours. So my question to the able presenter is that how do we navigate climate financing? Because if you could see now, there are initiatives that are working within the sub-Saharan Africa to see that more is being done around things that has to do with nature-based solution to climate change, which is very key to this topic that you are discussing today. So climate, green financing, climate bonds, sovereign national investment, many other things are coming in place, but access becomes a problem. Although we are sure that you have to have some track record of activity to assess this financing on an organizational level or at corporate entity level. So can you shed more light around the financing? How easy it is to get it, and how do we navigate this aspect of financing to go into projects that are well-meaning and very positive impacting to our communities? Thank you very much.
Thank you too, Mubarak. Your questions, I think a lot of the participants will also having the same question. All right, on the issue of climate finance, the most important thing, and your guess is not different from mine. I also have this frustration that why a lot of discussions allow climate finance, but access becomes a problem. I would not tell you that access is not a problem. It is indeed a problem, and but then on our own part, how do we ensure we access climate finance? I have a boss that always say, create value and the money will come. And that is where we fail. If you look at it, you go to local communities, from NGOs to government institutions, they don't have the necessary project track record. They don't have the fiduciary requirements to meet to access this climate finance. There are a lot of conspiracy theories around. Okay, they just don't want to give us the money. That is why they are making it difficult for us. Okay, they don't want to give us the money. Can you meet the requirements? Why are other people accessing it? Why not? We are not doing that the same thing. So let me give you in plain words. We have to build strong institutions, like I have said during my presentations. If you go to local communities, you realize that they are not registered. They're local institutions, they have community development associations that are not registered. If you have a community development association that were registered because they needed to get some money from a government intervention, that is the end of it. They don't have audited financial statement. They don't have project track records. These are the things that would ensure you have access to this climate finance. They are basic requirements. But then, what is government and the civil society organizations that know it doing to ensure that these other local communities and other non-governmental organizations have access to this finance? This is where the problem is. So it now behoves on us to now make sure that local communities and civil society organizations and non-governmental organizations that are coming up, they have the necessary fiduciary requirements. If you look at climate finance, Mubarak, you would see that there are requirements that you have to meet to access it. Let's say if you are going for maybe adaptation fund, you have to go through a direct access entity, which as I'm talking to you now, there is no direct access entity for adaptation fund in Nigeria. For Green Climate Fund, we have only one direct access entity. You know, JEF funding, it has been coming. We have accessed a lot of JEF funding. But when you access a single JEF funding, you cannot access another one. Why? Because you have not implemented the project the way it should have been. So we don't have a proper project management approach to enable us access this finance. So in as much as we would blame these international financial institutions, we also have a share of blame. And then you talk about, okay, sovereign national fund, we talk about the ecological fund, all these things. Okay, they have become more or less like a conduit, and then the projects are not implemented. You have a project. Let me give you an instance. You have a project for, say, in Enugu State, and then you decided to go and just sit down in Abuja and decide that, okay, Enugu State has a problem of a gully erosion, so we are just going to do gully stabilization for them. So you have a very fantastic proposal, you do gully stabilization project. You then submit it to an international funding. The first question is, where are your stakeholders? Have you met with your stakeholders? Where are the records that you have really met with the stakeholders? You see, this is where most of this conversation ends, because you feel you can just go and decide to meet, you are the national organization, and then you can access money on behalf of the local communities. And then in the event you are now handholding the local communities, they will ask you, why is their registration? This local community have accessed funding during the last IFAD or FAO intervention. How have they utilized this funding? Do they have audited financial statements? So this is what is actually holding us back. If we are going to do the right thing, and like I said earlier, if we create value, the money will come in naturally. This is what Kenya is doing. This is what our next door neighbor, Ghana, is doing. So talking about carbon credit also, globally, be it Brazil, Kenya, there are a lot of greenwash projects. And why? Because of the same problem. The right thing has not been done. Last year, you know, the scandal around the northern Kenyan drylands, because Vera had to withdraw its own license. Why? Because there was no local engagement. You want to do a restoration project, you want to get carbon credit from it, and you have not started with the custodians of this land to get their free, prior, and informed consent. So this is what is actually militating against us from accessing this climate finance. But if we are going to do the right thing, I can assure you, naturally, the money will start coming in. Because they also want to make sure that they dispose these funds, but they need to ensure that they do the right thing. So in short, what I want to say is first, we need capacity building. Secondly, we need to strengthen our institutions, make sure we do the right thing, make sure we have the needed fiduciary requirement. We've met the needed fiduciary requirements, and then all other aspects. We cross our T's and dot our I's, and then the climate finance will come. Thank you very much.
So Christine, you can go ahead. Can you unmute, Christine? Unmute. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I want to congratulate the presenter for his best presentation. For me, first of all, I have something to add before maybe to end up with my question. For flood and drought, I think there is something nowadays that is a better tool that we can leverage for mitigate the consequences of flood and drought, because if as we have AI tools nowadays that they give brilliant precision, for me we can maybe rely on these tools to forecast even maybe at the end of this season we can have a drought or flood. These tools can also help because we know also in our region, those who are well affected by climate change are those who are less educated, like people who are living in a rural area. And there is one thing we must note also, it is those people that generally they are feeding people who are living in urban town. So if they don't have a good knowledge or they don't are aware of climate change consequences, it to give or that brings too many problems. So if state can have AI tool that can predict drought or flood, it will, for me, it will be something very interesting. And based on this, our countries, maybe if they have knowledge about drought and flood in advance, that can maybe have a great way to give people some information that can help people to make maybe to make big agriculture in advance or not. Maybe I don't know if my question is enough clear for the presenter or not.
Sorry, Christian. Can you just be clear with the questions? Let me just have the questions in one sentence, because you made a comment and then the question.
Okay, for me is can we if we our state can leverage AI tools to better help to mitigate climate change effect, that is possible or not? Because you talk about maybe climate financing issues lately, so I don't know if this one is a solution or not. Thanks.
Kristen?
Yes.
Yeah, can you hear me? Oh, please, which country are you from?
I am from Chad.
You're from Chad, right?
Yes, a French-speaking person, so maybe you can notice it.
I wanted to give you local solutions to a problem. For instance, you see in Chad, it's a dry country. We can use AI to solve issues of climate change vis-a-vis. We can use it for climate impact prediction. We can use it for early warning system. When you can have climate AI for even if you look at climate adaptation practices, use AI for extension services. A lot of countries have already started using AI. We have Kenyan friend that is using AI to provide solutions to local farmers. In in Chad. I don't know if you know Kaura, a friend who is also trying to use AI to provide solutions for communities. He's trying to use it to demarcate communities that need a renewable energy solution in the around the Chad area. So this is AI is very important in climate change adaptation, and a lot of people are exploring it. And I will advise you to also look at how you can use AI for climate change adaptation.
Okay,
And if
thank
you
you.
want us to have to further this conversation, please you can send an email, and so that we can discuss further on the use of AI for climate change adaptation.
With great pleasure, of course. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Haruna Yusuf, unmute and contribute. Go straight to the point. Yeah.
Good morning to the speaker. My question is centered on the current global political discourse on climate change. I want to know how the current discourse by world leader on climate change and the different points of view, how will this affect climate change and climate funding? The reason why I'm asking this question is that last year, during the United Nations General Assembly, we heard how world leaders debated and argued about the idea of climate change. And currently, this year, we heard that we saw that in the World Economic Forum. I've seen that most mainstream media were of the opinion that the idea of climate change was not even discussed at all. World leaders did not even mention climate change during the World Economic Forum. And if vulnerable communities here in the global south are having this issue, and world leaders in global forums are not talking about it. So I want to know how will this affect climate change financing and other aspects. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Haruna. The honest truth is, world leaders may not have spoken about climate change, but in Davos, when your vice president was giving his speech, haven't you seen him talking about climate change adaptation? Your own vice president, he was there and he spoke very well about climate change adaptation, climate resilient practices.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So the truth is, soldier go, soldier come, the barrack remained the same. A lot of people, America has even pulled out of the climate change discussions. There are countries that don't want to discuss about climate change. But climate change is not something that you can just do without. This is something that has to do with agriculture. If you're bringing interventions in agriculture, you have to do you have to adapt to climate change, whether you like it or not. And if you don't do it, it will come. You will see it implode. You will see it. They will give you with receipts. And that is what is happening. Before now, a lot of countries are not really serious about climate change. And now, Haruna, what is happening is you don't have to talk about climate change in international forums because it is embedded in each and every document. And I will tell you that if you look at the outcome of the Davos conversation, climate change featured prominently. You understand? And during the United Nations Summit, climate change still featured prominently. Yes, there are issues that are now in the front burner because a lot of things are happening in Ukraine, a lot of things are happening in Palestine, a lot of things are happening in Venezuela. So these conversations will definitely be in the front burner. But climate change will be discussed. There are side rooms. Usman, you need to take Haruna to this forum so that Haruna will see the side discussions. A lot of the conversations are there and they are happening. Please. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much for these interactive conversations, and it's all impactful. We all learn one way or the other. So the last thing I'd say, if we can all maybe on our videos to have a selfie and then call it a day. For those that have access to their cameras, just on your videos, let's have a selfie and then we call it a day. Can you on your videos? Can you on your videos? Can you on your videos? Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, thank you, 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 thank you. So, okay, thank you, Mubarak, thank you, Hussein, thank you. So, yes, so I will count 1, 2, 3, then we take this out. 1, 2, 3. There you go. Yes. So how we miss you? Let's take another one. We missed Hawa. Let's take another one. Okay. Sorry. 1, 2, 3. There you go. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all for participating, and we hope you join us next time. Thank you. Have a rest. Have a good. Yeah. Bye.